I got time for another story real quick. Should have time. Just got a call, which ruined my first version of this. Well, didn't ruin it, but might as well start over. But yeah, fillets is I gotta come up with a better word. Anyway, let's see if I got time for another short story real quick. Let's see if I can make it 2 today, maybe 3. Anyway, uh, I got this pal of mine. Well, we don't. I don't know when the last time is we hung out. We still speak occasionally, but we're aware of each other. But old Danny B, maybe he'll see this. Uh, and for one of these adventures, Richie and Sierra was there too, but I guess they were otherwise engaged in the back seat or whatever the case may be, so they saw nothing. But me and Daniel, on the other hand, we saw some shit a couple times. Well, uh, this one time we're going on to uh, let's just say the hill. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You think about it real hard. You got a state line bridge. You know, you know what? Let's just say what it is. It's Berry Hill, right? Berry Hill Bridge Road. I mean, we all know around here what that type of thing, what it's about. Well, there's a lot of weird things that's happened out there. There's the original name of the place was Bury Hill, like Bury, like bury in the ground. And the reason for that was, I believe, in my estimation, not only are there a lot of colonial cemeteries, and there's also a lot of slave cemeteries, but before that, apparently there's a lot of Indian burial ground around there. And anytime they built a plantation, they would just dig up the bones, and sometimes they would use them for decorations. Other times they would just throw them down in the hollows of the woods, and just be really disrespectful to the native graves. But there are so many graves throughout there. And then also there was a revolutionary massacre. I don't remember the names of the two generals or whatever involved, but the uh, the British were going to flank the Americans before they woke up early in the morning and massacre them in their beds, right on the banks of what would be the Dan River right there now at the state line between this state and Virginia. And the British, as always, thought they were clever. However, the Americans woke up a little bit earlier than the British and decided, you know what, I think we're going to flank the British and murder them in their beds. So that's what they did. And there was a skirmish, but from all sources that I've seen, the British were absolutely massacred. Um, they tried their best, but they were just massacred. They were unaware. And, you know, and then when they got done, the Continentals just kicked their bodies down in the hollows, um, left them to rot because they didn't, British people, they didn't see fit to bury, just let them rot because of what they're doing to us. And eventually, some of the widows and some of the parents and different things that were looking for their husbands or their sons, different things, were able to come to America, and some were able to locate parts of their bodies, um, or locate their loved ones that had fallen, and a few were able to be taken home. From what I understand, what was mostly done is they used slaves to go through the woods, and the women themselves also did it, actually looking for the bodies. Every once in a while they'd find somebody with a tag, or they'd identify somebody by a piece of jewelry, or the clothes they were wearing, something, just whatever. But I think that's where Bury Hill comes from. And all the houses out there are anywhere from like 1730, 1740 on up to like antebellum plantations, 1840, 1850. It's all used to be farmland and plantations out there. But anyway, so the road that this massacre happened on, or it wasn't a road then, it may have been a road. There was a ferry crossing there instead of a bridge originally for 200 or 300 years before they built a bridge, right? So, I'm sure there was a road there. There's been a road there for a long time. Maybe that's got something to do with the weird stuff, like the green ball of light on the tracks, and the ghost cars, and the black figures, and the tobacco sprinklers. 100 feet up in trees, spraying water on the cars at 2:30 in the morning. Maybe it explains some of it. I don't know. Who knows? But okay, so this one particular time, me and Daniel, and I can't remember if Richie and Sierra were the first or the second time, but either way, it doesn't really matter because they didn't see anything, so it's not really pertinent. But so we are on Berry Hill, and we turn onto the bridge road, right? And we turn onto the bridge road, and we make it down probably not even a quarter, probably not even an eighth of a mile. And we both see what we think is a mule deer. I believe it was just me and him this time. But we saw what we thought was a mule deer, or what, some people say, oh, there ain't mule deer here. Okay, let's call it a white-tailed deer then. It doesn't matter. The point is, it looked like a deer. It was the rear end of an animal and two legs, and it was, and like its back was in a horizontal position from what we could see, but the weeds were, probably waist high or very nearly waist high on a man. Well, when my headlights hit this deer, I started to slow down, because I was waiting for it to bolt, and hopefully it didn't bolt into the side of my car. And anybody who doesn't know this area, it's swampy on either side of the road on the Virginia side. The Virginia side is just wasteland. North Carolina side, there's still farms and houses. Virginia side, there's no houses. There's nothing but swamp and scrubland, basically. Um, and there's I've even ran into but I'll just leave the name out. But the guys in the white sheets, I ran into them one morning out there about 2:30. I don't know if it was 2:30 or 4:30 in the morning, and they were having one of their gatherings or meetings. And well, I'm not affiliated with them and wasn't really interested in you know hanging out in a tree for way too long. So I turned around and went the way I came. But it's just a real weird place. A lot of weird stuff happens, and I could go into detail after detail after detail, but it would take way too long in one video. Maybe I need to do a longer video one of these times. Well, so we turn on to this road, and we see what we think is a deer. The lights at the tail end of it, and when my lights hit it, whatever it is stands up on two legs like a man, very muscular, but covered in like long, like tawny, brownish, grayish fur. But you could see the muscles like rippling, like under the skin, even through the hair. That's how robust the animal was. And it stood up on two legs, and well, I'm holding the phone here, but you know how like you have a hard day's work, and say you get off and your shoulders are hurting, and you kind of arch your back, and you'll roll your shoulders around, you know, kind of like that. Well, that's what this thing did. It rolled its shoulders backwards and flexed its back like its back was hurting, and it started to look over its shoulder at us. And it never turned it. I don't know if it changed its mind, or maybe if it couldn't turn its head all the way. I have heard that supposedly Sasquatches have real thick necks, kind of like an ape, and it's hard for them to turn their head all the way. Um, and it turned to almost to the point to where we could see the face of it, but it never turned all the way. And like I said, it flexed its shoulders and arched its back, and within two or three strides, it was into the tree line there. And it was gone. I rolled up, had the windows down. Daniel was tripping out. I'm probably relatively tripping out myself. But by the time we got up to right where it stepped into the tree line, it just evaporated. Like either it was really good at hiding, or it was gone, or it just disappeared. I don't know. But we didn't see it. We didn't hear it after that. And I always thought that was interesting. But now the next one makes me sound like I'm psychotic. So just bear with me. But maybe maybe I'll tag Danny B in this. Maybe he can jump in on it and verify. Maybe not. Maybe he don't want to verify. I know he said that he blocked out a lot of these memories because they're extreme. And they do make you sound like you're crazy if you tell somebody, you know, but I've told several people and they do believe me, which I appreciate because it's the fucking truth. It really is. But this next time, and I believe this is when Richie and Sierra were with us, but I could be wrong. It's been probably 20 years ago now, probably maybe 25. Who knows? It's been a long time. Anyway, no, I haven't been 25 for sure, but it's been a long time. But anyway, so same thing. We're hitting the bridge road from Berry Hill. We're just out riding around bored. We don't have anything to do. So we get further than we did when we see the. I don't know if it was a Bigfoot, dog man, whatever, but it didn't particularly scare me. It was. I know it wouldn't. Whatever it was didn't seem like it's supposed to be here, but it wasn't overly terrifying or anything. It didn't approach us. It didn't make any kind of sound. It just scampered off like an animal would do, but it walked on two legs. And, you know, like I said, you could see its muscles. You could watch it swing its arms. And it was definitely, like I said, it was covered in that tawny fur. But this time, I'd say we made it down maybe a half mile, if that. And this thing comes swooping down over the tree line. They had the trees like cut back at that time because I believe they had sod fields on either side of the road. So they actually had a crew come through and cut the trees like out from over the top of the road. So the trees would start to arch over, but it left a gap, you know, in between for whatever reason. So we see this thing come swooping down. And the thing is, it swoops down, it's huge, whatever it is. And it swoops down so low in front of my car. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm still driving the Dodge Neon, 96 Dodge Neon, strawberry pearl, still remember the color. And it swooped down so low for a second or two, we couldn't see it at all. Like it below our bumper, or not below our bumper, but below the hood of the car, so low that we couldn't see it. And then it comes up over the bumper and the hood. It goes up over the glass, kind of like that, over the hood. Never touches the car, never makes a sound, never flaps its wings. Um, but here's the weird part. That's weird enough, but it's it makes you sound crazy. It really does. Well, I can't swear to the thing having a hat, but I want to say it had a wide brimmed hat on, but I could be wrong about that. It might just be me thinking about Cheapers Creepers, but that's exactly what this thing looked like. Not exactly, but as close to that is the closest thing that I can tell you it looked like. And it, whether it was wearing a hat or not, I'm not 100% sure. I want to say that it was, but I'm not 100% sure. And it had wings like a bat, but imagine scaling those wings up to a human size, but big, you know, big. Um, and this animal or person or thing was the size of a man. I'd say about 6 foot tall. It its morphology was that of a man, more or less. You know, it had a head, neck, shoulders, two arms, two legs, torso, like we do. But the skin was like a gray or brown. It was like tight, like to the frame, you know, like gaunt. It was this grayish brown color in the headlights. And I had forgotten until I was talking to a friend of mine about it. And apparently he experienced the same thing 20 years before on the bridge. He stopped me in mid sentence and described it to me before I could describe it to him. And he reminded me of something that I had forgotten actually. But this thing, its eyes were like pits, just solid black. No, just solid black. And the skin being that grayish brown pallor. It was just, you know, grotesque. Um, but the thing was, it was wearing a long coat, like a trench coat, but it was kind of like torn and shredded a bit. And the thing had on what I would call breeches, but maybe it was like pants that were shredded at the bottom, you know, or but I would say they're like breeches because they were. I can't really see. If you look at my leg, it's kind of hard to trying to find an angle, but they came to like right below the knee, I would say. So that's why I say they remind me of breeches. And they were like ripped and tattered. Um, but whatever this thing was, it looked like a man. It had this brownish gray skin. It had these black pits for eyes. It had these huge bat wings. And it had pants on. And the reason I can tell you the description so well is because, like I told you, it came up over the hood, over the windshield. And so, for all intents and purposes, we looked this thing right in the face as it went up over top of us, and you could see the whole everything. And before it swooped down, you could kind of see it in the air, but when it came close, you could really see it clearly. And your guess is as good as mine. You explain it. The only thing I could figure is maybe it has to do with the Indian spirits that have been, where their bodies have been desecrated, or maybe it might have something to do with hoodoo or voodoo, or that type of thing from the slaves that had been abused, or maybe the land is just bad, or maybe the land is just weird there. I don't know what it was, but it happened, and I'd appreciate if Danny B would confirm. But if I was him, I wouldn't even acknowledge it personally. I'd be like, this motherfucker is crazy.